we have a really great session. I met Sarah Renee Clark at an event I was doing in Singapore, and Australian. She came in, she started talking about the art she was doing and the adult comic books, and I was like, oh my God, this is an amazing creator. Why have I never met you before? And then the next time I brought her to an event, she brought her husband, Shane Clark, there, and the chief operating officer of Sarah Renee Clark. And I'm like, you guys are amazing. You're like a dynamo. And then I heard a little bit more about their business and the amazing stuff that they're building, which you'll want to know about as well. I won't get into too much details on that, but they're now working with my good friend, Renee Teeley, to help expand and grow. But we're not going to talk that much about what they're doing. We're really going to talk about production and whether better production can grow your channel. So think about it. Every creator gets to that point where they're like, is better gear actually going to make me better? Like, can I like change out? Do I actually need to get a light and a microphone so they can get more viewers and more subscribers and more brand deals? Or am I just adding cost and complexity and not getting anything out of it? Well, that is exactly what these two are going to talk about. They're going to share what happened when they upgraded their production quality across the board and give you practical advice on where production quality moves the needle and where you could buy something that's just going to be a waste of money. So please welcome Renee Teeley, Creator Business Partner, Sarah Renee Clark, and Shane Clark, Chief Operating Officer and husband of Sarah Renee Clark. Come on up. Shane, you're here. Renee, you're there. Give them a big round of applause and take us home.
This is lovely. I get to sit down now. Last time I did this, I was at the podium and I'm way too short for that. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Renee Teeley. So I'm the executive business partner at Sarah Renee Clark. And this is Shane, the COO and husband of Sarah Renee Clark. And we're going to be talking all about upgrading your production gear. So I'll be the first to admit, I love gear. So anytime something looks really cool, I want it. Don't know how to use it. Don't know how to integrate it into my workflow, but it's cool and I want it. Sometimes that also comes with cost and complexity. So if you have multicam setup, now you also have more work if you're editing. So there's a lot of things that you kind of need to think through when you're upgrading your production setup. And also, is it going to do anything for your channel? Is it going to actually help grow revenue, grow subscribers, views, all of the things that kind of grow go into building your channel? So that's what we're going to talk about. Before we jump into the production side of it, Shane, can you talk a little bit about what is the type of content you create on the channel?
Yeah, sure. So we're a art channel, and where we started years ago is we actually first started as like a blog and a website, and we started making products and printables on Etsy. And YouTube was actually a later platform that we came on because we found that when other people did videos about products that we made, we found that people actually really connected with that particular creator. And as people who weren't in that scene, we saw that and thought, well, we should be doing that for our own stuff. And so that's where we started into creating YouTube content. And at first it was a lot more like art tutorials and things, but then it became more of a channel that was about encouraging people to be creative. So people who wanted to get into art but felt like they couldn't draw or felt like they couldn't paint or that they weren't talented, it was all about giving them permission to just step out and just give it a go. And so that's where we started. We never aimed to be like the best artist out there. We just aimed to be someone who is inspirational to people who wanted to be creative themselves.
So I want to start with what your production setup looked like to begin with.
It's very high tech.
Let's see if I can get this. There we go. Okay, so walk us through what's happening here in the production setup.
So this was a time when we were actually building our house and moved in with Sarah's parents while the house was getting built. And what we had there was our washing hanging to dry in the background of the set, which that clothes horse sometimes doubled as like an overhead camera tripod. And then we've got an ironing board that's our desk. And we started like a lot of creators with just using like a webcam. And then in the background there's a photo light that we bought off someone from Facebook Marketplace that was our sort of, lighting setup. And we really, really just hacked it together. whatever we could find, we just set it up, and week to week, our whole setup would change because I'd find like a monitor laying somewhere. I'd be like, that would be great for this. And you'd like rip everything apart and totally reconfigure stuff to make that work. And then you'd find something else. And so we just really hacked it together.
I want to call out just one thing in this photo that just really gets me every time I look at it is this ironing board desk.
It was adjustable height, so that was good.
That's perfect. I've also seen photos where Sarah is using paper towels to help balance a a camera. There's been all sorts
That
of
was a slider for a while because you could just,
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just basically about getting started with what you have, literally. Now I want to walk us into where you are today with production. So it looks quite different.
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about this setup and what kind of prompted the initial reason to upgrade? Like what got you thinking about it?
So I think, as I mentioned before, we just hacked everything together and did the best that we could with what we had because money's obviously constrained. You're not going to spend tens of $1,000s on gear if you don't know that the whole concept of your channel is actually going to work. And so this is after we got to a point where we were like, yes, this is what we want to do. And the setup or setups that we had over time got more and more frustrating. And so there was those obvious moments when you'd go to like start to record something and the microphone audio wasn't coming through, or the light that you bought off Amazon stops working just before you press the record button. So now you've got no lighting, or the camera settings aren't what they were when you last used them and you don't know why. And all of those kind of things were like those really obvious triggers. But then there was also the thing of like over time, things would just break down, or you would update something and that would cause something else not to work. And it gets to a point that what you had that was enough was just no longer enough. And so this is where we've sort of gotten to over a long time, where everything is like very upgraded, but everything works together a lot easier. And although it looks more complicated, it's more streamlined. Things work together, and it's a overall better experience from a production point of view. But also for Sarah, it's also better for her because she can get more creative quickly.
So you didn't just jump from the ironing board desk to this.
No, we went to IKEA first and got a proper desk.
And then for this setup, was it adding specific pieces over time?
Yeah, it would be unrealistic as a creator to go from like ironing board to television studio. And so, yeah, you do prioritize certain things. And over time, we've upgraded sort of piece by piece to get to where we are now.
And then, so again, like I mentioned in the beginning, I love gear. Does add complexity.
Yeah.
So, well, talk us through some of the actual impact. Like you upgraded gear, you got everything working in terms of streamlined workflow. What happened on the channel?
So when we upgraded our gear and really went for more of like a polished feel to our videos and put a lot more effort into our production quality, I think that there's a lot of things that changed on both like a viewer level, but also like on a sponsorship and brands level as well. For our viewers, I think the level of depth that we go into like the actual video content that we make, combined with like the quality of our videos, has really built credibility with the audience. And so we'll put out a video and people will watch it, and it will be because Sarah made it. Like whatever she said, I trust it because she's put the effort in, she's put the work in. It looks really good, and it's also entertaining. And we've also found that in recent times, our viewership has become more of a television audience. So a lot of our viewers now have moved away from like mobile to TV to where that is our highest, like our highest viewership by watch hours. In the last 90 days, about 7,000 hours more on TV than on mobile. And what we've found with that is, from a retention perspective, people tend to skip less on a TV. Like you don't start watching like a movie or a TV show and you don't just sit there with the remote, like skipping through until it gets interesting. Usually you sit down, you commit to watching it. And we find that a lot of our audience now, if they decide that they're going to watch one of our videos, they'll watch the whole thing. And so that's worked out a lot better for us. And it's allowed us to make longer videos. So some of our videos will be 45 minutes long and it takes a while to create, but we'll be able to make a video that's 40 to 45 minutes that's reviewing art supplies. And we'll get comments like, I have absolutely no interest in art whatsoever or art supplies. I don't even know why I was recommended this video, but I watched the whole thing and I loved it and I don't know why. And that's because, I mean, we put a lot of effort into the actual writing of the video, but we also put a lot of effort into making sure that it's entertaining, that it's polished, that the audio and the video is to the best of our ability.
So I want to dive into that topic just a little bit on the TV side.
Yeah.
So just a kind of little segue. I recently was at an event with a bunch of creators and everyone was showing an older video on a big screen. And so we went through everyone showing their embarrassing videos. I happen to have one, put it on. And the first thing someone said was, it's out of focus. And I was like, yeah, but when it's on a teeny tiny screen, no one can tell. It's just my eyes are a little out of focus. But it's on a big screen, you can tell. And so is that something it seems like it's really impacted the channel in a way because now the content is TV appropriate?
Yeah. So, and I know that YouTube are actually, they're putting a lot of focus into TV viewership, I think because they're seeing that as one of their growth areas. But we actually started editing our videos and delivering them in 4K a number of years ago before YouTube was sort of like actively pushing it. And where that's helped us now is because people have now got bigger TVs and they're watching TVs, our back catalogue of videos now has the same amount of value as if we uploaded it now, whereas we have a lot of creators who are much, much bigger channels than us in the same niche who are still uploading in HD, which is fine if you're watching it on a mobile, but if you're watching that on like a 100-inch TV, it looks terrible. And so their back catalogue's going to become obsolete to an extent, much quicker than ours are. And as a creator, you actually do get a lot of videos from that back catalogue. So that's actually helped us a lot. It's helped broaden like our evergreen videos and just to sort of, I guess, lift that level of views each month overall without having to sort of like really go for viral stuff or like putting out more frequent content.
So it sounds like you're ahead of the curve in releasing kind of high level production, especially in the art space.
Yeah.
But also, do you feel like that's impacted the content in some way? Because so I watched a lot of the videos and they're very almost documentary style of like deep dives. They're amazing, even if you're not an art fan. But that is the type of content that someone may just watch on Netflix or something else, a docuseries going into depth about something. So do you think that has actually changed the actual content in some way? Like, has it allowed you to go longer?
Yeah, I think so. We actually have for a long time, sort of between Sarah and I, she's always said she wanted to be the Michelle Carre of art. And she's taken a lot of inspiration on how she does like a challenge accepted series. And to really just, to show all the emotions in the content that we do. And a lot of that comes from how we like develop the story or how we write it and how we sort of film it, and the quality sort of complements that. But yeah, it does allow you to create longer videos that sort of build that connection with the viewer over a longer period of time, rather than making a really quick video of like, here's this really cool artwork that I do did. Isn't that awesome? And then you sort of move on.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the gear here.
Yeah.
You didn't go from ironing board desk straight to this.
Yes.
We've got the IKEA stop in the middle. Can you talk a little bit about like what was the first thing that you upgraded that really had an impact? Like, was it camera? Was it lights? Was it audio? Like, what was the thing that you actually
Our first meaningful upgrades that I think made the biggest difference is camera and audio. Lighting, I feel like you can push that down the road a little bit. And people will sort of put up to an extent with average lighting. Average audio, people definitely won't. Like if you're watching a video and the audio is like terrible, like you're actively going to get away from it. Video is sort of like a close second. So for us, trying to have good quality audio and video was really important to us. So that was our first things. And neither of us were like professionally trained in those areas. We've learned everything along the way, but we always understood like if we can get it a little bit better, then that will have a meaningful impact.
And when we don't have to get too technical on the gear itself, but when you were upgrading the gear, you said the camera and audio made a really big difference.
Yeah.
With your camera, was it initially one camera or multicam kind of from the start with the upgrade?
So we ended up with 2 cameras, and we used the Blackmagic 6K cameras, and one on the front and one above. And you can see that's sort of above Sarah there where the microphone is, because she does a lot of art, and we wanted to have like an overhead camera for doing that art. That was really important. Having something that we didn't have to like keep moving around obviously saves a lot of time because you can sort of leave it there. And because we were shooting in 6K, we were able to sort of reframe, like if we wanted to zoom in on something, we had that option to do that later. And so having at least those 2 cameras was a massive difference for us.
So for the general creator, so I know we have a lot of creators in here. I know some of them, so I know they're here. For the general creator, do you have a recommendation on what might be the first thing that they would upgrade? So you talked about audio a little bit and the camera, but like at what point should they start thinking about upgrading, and what is that first thing you'd recommend?
I think the first thing that you have to look at before, and like I'm also a sucker for cool tech gear.
I know you
like this NAB show is more dangerous to me than casinos in terms of like spending money.
Both of us.
I think that the things you need to focus on upgrading first are the things that are actually having a negative impact on your channel. So if you have a microphone that's producing poor audio, that's the thing you should focus on before, say, if you have like a camera that's doing okay, but it's not like a negative, then that can sort of wait. So you need to look at the things that are having a detrimental impact on the quality of your channel, but also the things that are frustrating you. So like if your camera works, but it takes you 45 minutes to get it working, then that's time that you're losing every time you're going to shoot. So before you look at improving your quality, I think you need to look at getting rid of those actual frustrations first.
And how does comments on the channel kind of play into that? Would you recommend that people actually look through the comments and see if people are saying your video looks terrible, your audio sounds terrible?
Yeah. So in our early days, that was one of the signals for us where you would get, and it'd be like heartbreaking. You'd put a whole lot of effort into the video, and like, the second comment on there would be like, why is that blown out? Looks like crap. And your heart would sink inside. And we know that you'll always get, no matter how good the video is, you'll always get a comment from someone who shouldn't have access to internet. But if you're getting consistent comments, then it is because you're going to have people who think that but won't say that. And so you do need to look at feedback from those viewers, and you do need to consider whether that's valid feedback. You might look at it and go, I don't agree with that, like that's fine. But if you're getting consistent comments over time that something's wrong, then that it probably is a signal that you should act on.
Yeah. So let's go to the flip side of it.
Yeah.
So not all production upgrades are worth it. So
Yes.
sometimes it can be just fun toys that you're spending a lot of money on, adding some complexity, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Anything, did you actually upgrade anything that you thought didn't really make an impact?
So I really like gadgets and like sliders and all that kind of stuff. And I once bought, without talking to Sarah about it first, which we call an unapproved purchase, a $4,000 motorized camera jib. And I don't think they actually have a booth here this year. So like, that's all good.
Yeah.
But it was one of those ones where like you could program it and like a slider, it would do those shots. And I thought that would look really cool for like art time lapses and stuff. The amount of time I spent trying to balance it in the 85 different ways that you have to balance it for it to not like just sort of stop working. And then you would do like a 40-minute time lapse and then halfway through just do that. Or it'd sort of come up with an error. It was frustrating and it become a detriment to the creativity. And so it ended up being a waste of money. We haven't used it. If anybody's after a camera jib and you live in Australia.
Because you really talked it up.
Yeah. But it was something that I thought would be really cool. And it just ended up being not only a waste of money, but it actually become a frustration. And for a creative channel, the first thing that kills creativity is frustration.
Yeah. I may or may not have something very similar to that is also not being used in my little studio area. Do you have any advice to help other creators avoid those really expensive purchases that might not do anything?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you need to do is, I think you need to really learn and write down your whole production flow from planning to delivery. And you need to look at each step and think about the things that could be improved.
Okay.
And I think first look at whether that process could be improved from like a system or a process change or just doing the thing differently before you look at whether a piece of hardware or a piece of software or a new camera is the thing that you need to do. Because the temptation is like, I would get a better camera shot by buying this particular little skateboard thingy that the camera sits on. But maybe it's just being more creative and learning how to do the shot better and saving a whole lot of time in setting up a new piece of gear and buying that would get you the same results. So I think you need to sort of really think about whether those things are necessary, whether they're actually going to save you time, or whether they're just going to make your whole process more complicated.
Yeah, so that may save you $4,000 on doing the same mistake as Shane. So a little bit of a bonus question. So this will be the last question. We're going to open it up for some Q&A. So think about some questions. Is there any piece of gear that actually didn't make an impact on the channel, but you still love? Like you're still happy that you purchased it. It's still that fun, like, feeling of, you're the Batman of production. You got all your gadgets. There's something you really love, but didn't actually do anything for the channel. I know we didn't prep for this one, so I'm really sorry I'm putting you on the spot, but I feel like this is a good question for you.
Yeah, I love having a lot of camera options. So in our studio, we have like 5 different cameras set up. And to be honest, I didn't need all of them. Like you can just move a camera once in a while. But I like cameras and I like having them on the multi-view and being able to, like, especially when we're doing live streaming, to just be able to switch from different options. And I had a bit of a background in live production. So doing live stream and stuff is like exciting and fun for me. And so like, did I need a massive television switcher in there? Could I have just gotten like an A10 mini? Yes. Like I could have, but that's really fun and I enjoy it. So
I honestly think that that's kind of overlooked when you're building out your studios. What's going to make it more fun for you to actually create content? Like that's important too. So we're going to wrap up there, but let's take some questions.
Yeah, I'm right here, and I'm going to run mics, and I'm going to start over here and work my way the other way. Okay, here you go.
Thank you. You mentioned Michelle Carre's channel.
Yes.
What are the things that they do that makes you see it and be like, oh, I want to do that. That looks really cool that you want to incorporate into your channel.
The thing that we love about what she does is, and it's less from like the production side, but more like the story flow, is that Michelle shows everything in her video. She shows the nervousness. She shows the failure. She shows when she tried to do something and it didn't work and it made her look silly. She's not afraid to show the whole process. And in an art channel, that's also very important because there are a lot of people who are watching who think, I would love to be able to draw really well, but I can't. And so if we just go and draw something that's really good, you're really just flexing. And so we've always tried to be not the best artist, but to just be slightly ahead of your audience so that they have that aspirational thing that they can look towards. And I think that's really helped us.
So another question right here.
Yeah. So when did you make the first upgrade, your first piece of gear? You know, you went to IKEA. Was it when your channel actually earned affiliate money or whatever? You know, like when would you suggest that?
So we had a thing very early on, and it's, I don't know if it's sort of a luxury, but we never wanted to go into debt in order to be a creator. And so if you're thinking, I would love to create content, but I need to spend $50,000 on credit, you shouldn't do that. I think that you need to kind of, as a channel, have a little bit of proof of concept that people are going to actually watch your channel, and then maybe set a piece of gear as a reward for when you get monetized. Like you can treat yourself as the channel by getting that piece of gear because you know that as a creator, you've earned it, and it will also help you.
Other questions right here.
So, I know you talk about, doing this as a solo creator or something like that, but for those of us that work for companies, how do you suggest we have that conversation? Because my job is pretty willing to, but not always willing to spend the bigger bucks. So it would be just, how do we have that conversation with them to say that upgrading our gear is the way to go and not just trying to repurpose something we already have?
I guess you have to justify the benefit. If your employer feels like you're doing just fine with what you have, sometimes it's not about going to them and saying, this gear sucks, I want really good gear, but selling the potential of, hey, if we had this, we could actually do this. And then I guess also when they go, okay, give me the options, I tend to give a couple of options, and the thing that I actually want is kind of the middle option. So present like a really bad option that's sort of like, there's this, but it's probably not going to work. There's this, which is pretty good. Or we could spend $80,000 on this really overpowered thing, and that would be awesome. I go, well, I'm not going to get that. That might work.
That's like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears problem, right? It's too hot, it's too cold. It's just right. Is your question?
Have you ever rented equipment to try it out first before you made the big purchase?
We haven't ever like rented equipment, but we have gone to places where we've been able to like use the equipment, or I've experienced some of those equipments when some of that equipment when I've worked in particular jobs and everything. So that is a valid option where you could, if there's a camera that you think might work, well, you could spend $80, $100 renting it for a day, or at least going into a shop and demoing it before going online and just throwing the money away and hoping for the best. So I think renting is definitely a valid option.
Just to add one more thing to that, there are a lot of cameras and other gear that's on display here that you can play around with. Take advantage of that. It's a really good opportunity here.
And a lot of them have really cool sets, like filming set that you can, that's really cool.
Another question over here.
Yeah, you mentioned that better gear helped with your credibility. I'm just wondering, did you ever get any backlash of it looking too corporate or too polished that might have like hurt your authenticity with your viewers?
I think it depends on who your target viewer is. If you were, for us, it is the more middle-aged women who want to be creative and it's artistic. And so that leans itself towards good production as opposed to like, say if it was Mr. Beast doing a cinematic, pushing a truck off a cliff into a hole, sort of like it sort of lands differently. So for us, we haven't, but it really depends on what kind of channel you have as to whether having a polished production sort of matches that vibe or not.
All right, one last question.
All right, one last question. Here we go.
What was the draw to work in the Blackmagic suite compared to working with maybe Canon or Sony? Being able to control everything all in one area, was that a draw to why you chose that, or what led you to that?
Yeah, so we did use a Canon camera for a while because we had it for photography, and so it kind of did double duty in our photos, and we did it for video as well. But the thing that we liked about using Blackmagic stuff is they seem to have a piece of equipment for basically everything you need, but at every kind of like experience level. Like speaking about the ATEM, if you're just getting into it, you can get like a 4-port HDMI option all the way up to something that you would see in like a outside broadcast van. And so you were able to kind of like grow with their equipment depending on where you were in your career. But yeah, a lot of their stuff just works really well together. And we use DaVinci Resolve, and the cameras and footage works really well with that. And we love their stuff and love the company. And so, yeah, big fans.
So unfortunately, we're out of time for more questions, but we're both going to be here. So we'll stick around. I know the happy hour is coming. So if you have more questions, come find us. I know that Shane can talk about gear all day long, as can I. So we're happy to answer questions.